I've talked in the past that when it comes to hackers, the reason why it's such an interesting business for some and for organized crime is so few ever get caught. And why is that? Well, I've discussed the fact that, trying to have law enforcement going across different countries and collaborating makes it really hard for the bad guys to try to remain hidden. And one of the main reasons why the bad guys get caught is they eventually tick off somebody so big with such deep pockets that they're able to fund or take actions to go after them. Like governments. That would be one. Well, this week we've been talking a lot about the Orion hack through a company in Texas called SolarWinds. Turns out the hackers were able to compromise SolarWinds servers where people would go and get legitimate software updates. So if you happen to run their software and your computer is updated to the latest version, you got Trojan. Meaning you got a virus that let the bad guys in through a back door. That's how the hack played out. And I talked in some other videos this week about how well they did and the patience they had and how sophisticated it was. Quite often you hear about hacks being sophisticated. This one really deserves that title. The way they went about naming the files to make it look so good that even the developers of the legitimate software would have a hard time spotting the fake files. Anyways, let's get back to the point of this story. Man, when you tick off certain people, well, let's just say retribution was swift. There wasn't a lot of news about it, and it's coming out now. But Microsoft basically just Death Starred the hackers. What am I saying? Well, when it broke and it was found that this virus was occurring, Microsoft single-handedly revoked or told Windows operating system, and let's face it, in the business world, the majority of most computers are based around Microsoft, but Microsoft told Windows not to trust the certificate that the software was signed by. Now, what does that mean? Most legitimate software will go through a process of testing and vetting and will have a certificate that's assigned to it that says, hey, yeah, this file is legit and it comes from this company. Microsoft single-handedly went, nope, any files that have this name, that had that certificate, we don't trust you anymore. Done, gonzo, not doing it. At the same time, they updated their Windows Defender software, their built-in antivirus, if you will, on Windows 10 to alert should any of those files be on a computer system. So that was step one. Step two, the very next day, they, along with others, and by others, it's pretty safe to assume the government, did something called sinkhole. They sinkholed the domain of where the infected computers were checking into. So what that means is any infected computers would check into what's called the command and control server. So the software gets installed, it gets hacked, it's hacked, it's on there. It checks back into home base and says, hey, I'm here, what do you want me to do? Put me in, coach, I'm ready to go. Well, by sinkholing the domain name, Microsoft and the others were then able to direct all the traffic to a server of their choice. So A, it broke the command and control, so any infected machines that were checking in saying, hey, coach, I'm here, put me in, they weren't getting any commands back, and it let Microsoft know what systems were compromised, because the compromised systems, when they check in, give some identifiers to say who they are. So now the good guys have got an idea of what systems were already compromised as well. So that was kind of step two of this major strike back by Microsoft. Then they went ahead and they changed their Windows Defender software to stop saying from quarantine or from alerting to actually quarantining and just stopping it. So effectively, Microsoft, and we should mention that by Microsoft making that slight change from alerting to quarantining, that's a big deal, because that signaled to other security software companies that it was okay to start blocking that software, to start taking it off, because they say, hey, look, Microsoft's doing it, so it's good. It gives them a cover for them to go ahead, so that if they block something and a company complained and said, we're going to sue you because you stopped my software from running, they had cover to say, hey, Microsoft did it, so we're just following suit. And yes, it actually works in the computer world to have that happen that way. So it's kind of like Microsoft took their phasers and took them from stun and put it to kill. So I'm calling it Death Star. Microsoft just Death Starred. They took that one shot and hit the hackers back hard to shut it down, to block the damage and to try to pull it back a little bit. You know, there's a lot of people say bad things about Microsoft. Are they perfect? No. Are they a huge company? Definitely. But the fact that they're kind of like a gentle giant, okay, I don't think many people understood just how much power, and maybe it's good that they don't wield this power often, but just how much they can do to help stop these major attacks. But by taking the steps that they did, they really helped to minimize. And listen, a lot of companies got hit. You know, AT&T, the government, multiple different departments. A lot of big companies got impacted, which is what, you know, got Microsoft up and said, hey, this doesn't fly. We're going to shut this down. And they took steps to really impact it and try to mitigate the problems. It's also interesting to hear the Russian ambassador in Washington saying, you know, how are we supposed to prove that we were not involved if we were not involved? And why am I mentioning that? Is the group Cozy Bear, also called APT29, is heavily suspected. I mean, it hasn't been proven in a court of law, but by a lot of the security investigators and stuff, it points right back to an organization that's being funded and supported by the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service. So all but can say that yes, it was certainly condoned by the Russian government, and this stuff's been going on for years. As I said, one of my peers that I talk to quite often, he came out of the U.S. Air Force. He was an offensive cyber weapons operator. Hear that. Offensive cyber weapons operator. This stuff has been going on for years. We've been at cyber war for a long time. The stories I could tell about things that have gone on that it took a while to come out. But I won't do that today. Today we're just going to focus on thank you, Microsoft, for being a gentle giant and wielding a big stick, but only bringing that stick out when it was really needed. And man, they knocked that one out of the park this week, shutting things down and kind of teaching the Cozy Bear, the AP229 operators, a lesson in how to shut stuff down. So they were really good. They slipped through. They took advantage and they spread it, you know, far and wide. But Microsoft, in over a 2 or 3 day period, whoosh, pulled that down and made it mitigated the risks. I guess that's the best way to put that. Hey, listen. Thank you so much for tuning in to Scott on Security. I really enjoy the fact to be able to share and hopefully bring some technical things into some plain language and share with you. If you've got any questions or topics that you would like me to touch on, please feel free down below. Put it in the comments and I'll turn it into a future episode. Thanks a lot for tuning in. You have a great week.